Hey, welcome back. We are kicking off a whopper of an hour or two for this terrific Tuesday. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. I'm John Tobacco. We're coming to you live from our little outpost here in downtown New York City. We are still on Broadway. Yes, Mom, they haven't kicked us off Broadway yet. And we're in the Question Tequila Studios. Today we have a special guest appearance from Vesica Vodka. So they're fortifying us as well and helping us get through our days here on Liquid Lunch. But in the leadoff spot, when you want to kick off a whopper of an hour or two, you got to bring in some great guests. And we have with us today Senator Jim DeMint, former Senator Jim DeMint, and Rachel Bovard, the authors of Conservative, Knowing What to Keep. And Rachel's been with us before. Senator, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you coming down for a Liquid Lunch. But the book talks about conservatism, but not conservatism as a political theme, but the idea of conservatism in humanity in America. What made you guys make this book? And it's really poignant how fitting it is to a lot of things going on in our times right now.
We talk a lot about conservatism, John, but people don't define it in the same way. If we're going to build a conservative movement in America, we need to unify everyone about what we want to conserve. So Rachel and I, from two different generations, Rachel's a millennial, actually a New Yorker as well, so to define conservative in terms of what it really is, and that's knowing what to keep. The things that make life worth living, add meaning to life, make life better for everyone. And like you said, John, when you introduced it, it's not about politics, although that's a small part of it. It's about everything that brings meaning to life, our families, our traditions, our communities, our churches. And we wanted people to see conservatism as it really was. And then the second part of the book is about those on the left who want to throw all that out and start over again. If people understand what conservatism is, I guarantee you most people would say, I'm a conservative.
I think we talk a lot on our show about our audience that we're trying to appeal to are the purple people.
Right.
They're not like these zealots that are all red or all blue, but everybody has kind of different shades.
Right.
But I think like the fabric to me of America is family. And that's like a big part of what we want to keep, right, Rachel?
It is, and the title is helpfully apt in this regard, right? The title, Conservative, Knowing What to Keep. We go back and we look, at what we've done well. Because conservatism, to Senator DeMint's point, isn't this reflexive set of policy ideologies or doctrine or dogma. That's what the left gives us. Conservatism is really about a philosophy of gratefulness, and it's accumulated wisdom. It's looking back to the past and saying, what did we get wrong? What did we get right? Let's keep what we got right and apply it to sort of these modern problems. And so that's what we really attempted to do in this book. And you're right.
Family, borders, these things are like, these are kind of simple things, right? Yeah. We did a whole segment. We had Pam Bondi down here and Martha Bonetta on Christian persecution on the show. And there's some Americans who are trapped in Kuwait right now, and they're being held basically for what people think because they were Christian. And we were always talking about like, what the left seems to want us to forget is the country itself was founded on faith. Right. The founding fathers, that's why we say in God we trust and all this other stuff. How important is that in relation to the book?
Our second chapter is keeping our faith. And what we do is bring forward some of the ideas of Russell Kirk from the 1950s, who was considered the godfather of conservatism. But we try to put it in today's language. And Russell Kirk talked about the very foundation of freedom depends on a belief in a transcendent order. That doesn't mean you all have to be Catholics or Methodists or Jews. I mean, you can have a variety of beliefs, but his belief, and all of history proves this true, is you become governable and able to live in freedom if all of us assent to some transcendent, permanent moral order. And that is part of keeping our faith as a country. But you're right, John, America is very different. Not that we had one religion, but that we did believe that there was a creator who granted us our rights.
Yep, and I always say the most important thing to most people these days is money, and it says in God we trust there. So the left is allowing our money to keep its faith. You were well known as a leading conservative voice when you were in the Senate. You left the Senate to run the Heritage Foundation. What was it that made you think you could do more good in the think tank world?
I'll let Rachel talk a little bit about this too, but Rachel actually came with me from the Senate as well as several other folks because we believe that you have to win the battle on the outside. You have to convince the purple people, as you talk about, that there's some things worth keeping, and public policy has something to do with that. But Rachel had a lot of the same ideas, and she's now with us at the Conservative Partnership as one of our senior partners. But she has a perspective, I think, that's a lot like mine. So.
Yeah, that's right. Congress itself is broken right now. I think people on the outside are going to have to do a lot to fix it, as well as people on the inside. But what we do at CPI, the Conservative Partnership Institute, is we work with members of Congress and their staff to help them with that, right? To help them get their policy ideas across the finish line with the best strategies and tactics to do so.
So there's all kinds of crazy things happen these days in the social media world, but there's, one class of people who are saying that you left the Heritage Foundation. Others are saying that the board had asked you to leave or unanimously voted for you to leave. What was it that made you want to go to CPI and
Well,
leave
no, they
Heritage?
decided to go a different direction. So they did, as I say, ask me to pursue my gifts elsewhere. And so I had a lot of empathy for the ambassador last week who was testifying in impeachment. She lost her job. That happens to a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of your audience too. But we had a vision that, as Rachel talked about, that we need to do more than white papers and research. We need to actually support the people on the inside who are trying to keep those things that matter. And so Rachel and a whole team of us from Heritage started the Conservative Partnership to try to pull the conservative movement together, to define it in positive terms as we're doing in this book. And Rachel is one of the people who trains staff in the House and the Senate to know how to get things done. So, Rachel, you may want to give them your perspective on that.
Yeah, my one transferable life skill is parliamentary procedure.
Training.
Yeah. Only relevant in
Training
Washington.
congressional staff. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
she's a
tough
sommelier,
one.
so she teaches people about
Oh,
wine.
you're a
Yeah.
sommelier. Well, maybe you can help us
One
after the
supports
show.
the other sometimes, yeah.
So let me ask you this, Senator. What do you think about Trump?
Yeah, I like him in person, very genuine, unlike the way he's presented on television. I like his get-it-done attitude, but I can tell you this, John, I've never met anyone in politics who's more committed to keeping his promises. He keeps them written on a board next to the Oval Office. And so the pollsters come in and say, you can't do this, or you can't move the embassy, people will be upset. He just says, but I promised. So I think he would surprise a lot of people if they knew him in person.
Yeah, and he'd probably surprise a lot of people if the left stopped trying to figure out every way to mischaracterize his moves. Like, if you want a cause to get real publicity, get Donald Trump to say he likes it. You know what I'm saying? And then the whole left will go crazy. I think sometimes he uses like reverse psychology on them. He says the opposite first, so they take that angle, and then he flips back, and then they're caught. You know?
Well, as Newt Gingrich said, Trump gets up every morning and he knows the media needs rabbits to chase. So he gives them rabbits to chase, and then he goes and does something else that's good for the country. But he has done things that are good for the country and he puts America first. John, the thing I like is that the left seems to want to divide us all into groups and play us against each other. Trump wants us all to be Americans and put America first. And that's what a president should do.
We had the former chairman of the California Republican Party, Tom Del Beccaro, on the show yesterday. And his book is, I think, here, The Divided Era. And his whole premise is that the more government decides for us, the more they divide us. So the pendulum, the fulcrum at this point seems to be getting to a place where government's deciding everything, and we, the divided, are paying all the bills. There's no fiscal
I know Rachel
conservatism
can talk
in
about that
government
because she
anymore.
wrote most of the chapter on keeping our differences and why decentralized government makes that happen.
No, that's right. And I think that's the key emphasis between capitalism and socialism. We're seeing this swing towards socialism because everybody thinks we're supposed to be equality of outcome. Everybody's supposed to be the same in the end. But as we've seen with socialism worldwide, it's really easy to make people equal at the very bottom level. It's much, much harder to make them equal at the top level because the market supports our differences. We have different gifts and abilities, and we use them, and the market supports that, and that's why the free market is the best system to lift us all out of poverty and to support us as individuals.
Yeah, I always say that it's really sad that the left wants us to forget that we were founded on the pursuit of excellence, right? And when they feel the equality is not there, they almost rather than try to lift the other people up, they just want to dumb the other people down
Right.
financially and otherwise to try to close the gap, and that's the wrong way. You know what I mean? You can't. It's like in economics, you can't cut your way to growth.
Right.
You know what I mean? We need policies, and Trump said it best. He said, you know, every 4 years, your Democratic leaders come into your towns and tell you how great they're going to do for you. And look at you. You've been living your same exact type of quality of life. You know, we talk about the top 10 rattiest cities in America are all governed by one-party rule: Democrat mayor, Democrat council. Yeah. The top 10 murder cities and crime cities, all Democrat, and it's the same cycle. It's almost like that party is more interested in bringing in more voters than they are on helping their own constituents.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I hope folks, particularly the folks in the what we would call purple or in the middle, would take the time to see what conservatism it means in a positive sense, because we're all conservative at a personal level, John, because we all want to keep the things that matter to us. And so I'd love for your audience to take a look at conservative.
Well, we're going to run this thing for the rest of the show, I promise you that, but you got to go check out the book, Conservative, Knowing What to Keep. And there are a lot of things that, you know, they want to homogenize society, that we're all kind of the same class, the same person. Here in New York, they took, you know, you don't have to claim if your child is a boy or a girl when it's born. Now it could be X or other or anonymous or undecided. You know, we're giving illegal aliens, we're giving them free college. They can't be arrested in New York. It's like they want to open borders to just homogenize the whole society, it seems to me.
The whole world.
You did some great things in the Senate. Thank you for your service, and you guys are doing great things at the CPI. You got to check out the book, Conservatism, Knowing What to Keep. It's a great book. We have a whopper of an hour or two. When you start off like this, you got to keep trying to get better and better. You stay tuned right there. Coming up next is Michelle Eskenazi. She's the bail bond queen. And we're going to be talking about here in New York, in New Jersey, and now in California, where they want to let basically every crime you commit, no cash bail. You're just released, and hopefully we'll come back. In New York, Mayor de Blasio will give you New York Mets tickets if you show up for your court appearance. Yippee! Nate Bradley's going to be here talking about how the big companies like the Googles and the Fangs are stealing your data and selling it, and how you could take those matters into your own hands. And Frankie's going to come back, and we're going to cut in on the Newsmax feed to the live impeachment hearing. So you stay right there. More Liquid Lunch back at you right after this.